Hi, I'm Laura, and welcome to this edition of Happily Ever After. Today I'm going to talk about dun 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 in-laws. That's right. Your mate, your husband, and your wife probably has family. Maybe not, but maybe so. But usually people have parents, and they have siblings, and they have extended families. So, as I've said in earlier episodes, when you marry someone, you don't just marry them, you marry into a family. And families have their own vibes. And you met my brother in yesterday's episode. I only have one sibling, he's my younger brother. And in one of my earliest episodes, I featured Lisa White, Minister Lisa White, one of David's siblings. So when you marry someone, you marry into the family. And a lot of times the women are very close to their family, especially when they start having children. So I was very, very fortunate. I grew up with my grandparents. So my mother's mother and her family lives about 1.5 miles one way. And my dad's mom, she used to live far away, but then she moved about 2 or 3 miles. I mean, I can literally walk, not that I ever did, to my grandparents' house. And my cousin Melinda and her father, Uncle Sam, my father's brother, lived down Curtis. On Curtis, never walked there, could have walked. So I grew up with my grandparents nearby. I grew up with my Uncle Sam, Melinda, Ramona, Sherman, and Aunt Angela, not far away. My Aunt Gwen lived close to our church, lived next to our church at one point. So I got to grow up with a lot of my family. My Uncle Larry, he lived in Southfield, so Lori and Lisa weren't too far away. So that was pretty much my world. You know, my mother's, and we spent a lot of time with my mom's mom. She would pick us up and take us there after school. So when you marry into a family, you marry into all of these other people that you don't know. You just don't marry into that one singular person. So you have to make room and time in your life to be with family. And holidays, like the one we just had, July 4th, can be difficult because families want you to spend time with each other. And Christmas and Thanksgiving are probably the most stressful holidays, or can be. It's how do you split your time? And today, families live in very different places. So the pandemic had to be difficult. I know I have never spent a Christmas without my brother, even though he's married now, as you know, for 5 years. We always have spent Christmas together. And so it was very difficult not to see my brother and his wife and his boys. Now, they were with us in 2019. We were with them in 2018. So, and he lives in Alabama now. So it was very hard not to spend a Christmas with my brother. Other holidays, you know, that has happened, but we grew up and I only have one sibling. So Kenyon and David get along well. I think it's easier for guys. And my parents adore David. So that's great. And unfortunately, David's parents are both deceased. So I never had the opportunity to meet them or get to know them. And but I know his sisters, Elisa and Wanda. Unfortunately, we lost Mary January of this year. That was so unexpected. And his brother Warren. Now, usually sisters, especially as we're more mature, and brothers have, you know, their own wife and husband. So Lisa is not married, but my brother has Anya, and they have 2 young children. And that's kind of difficult because we're all older and they're just these 2 little people who never stop moving. So that's a lot to get adjusted to. And then Wanda has her husband, William, and they're very wonderful and energetic and fun and politically involved. And then Warren has Phyllis, and David is totally enamored with Warren. I mean, that's his big brother, and he's like, I want to invite Warren and Phyllis. I want to. So we were out with Warren and Phyllis just a few days ago. So that was a lot of fun. So just making yourself aware that in-laws are part of the package. Now, David and I are pretty fortunate. Our transition into marriage with our in-laws has been pretty smooth. There's other extended family like cousins and nieces and nephews and etc. where there's sometimes an age difference or sometimes there's a distance as far as where people live. And so David's family, a lot of them live here in the area. So I've met many more of his family members than he has met mine. But thankfully, he was able to meet my Uncle Larry before my Uncle Larry passed away due to COVID. So he's met my Uncle Larry and my brother and Wanda, but he hasn't really met, oh, he's met my Aunt Jean from Ohio, who's like in her 90s. We visited her. So he's met that branch of the family, Aunt Jean, Jan, Stephanie, and my cousins on that side. So I'm like, I kind of feel like it's a little bit of a balance. And I do have some family members here. I have one family member who passed. He didn't get to meet her. And then I have Aunt Jean's grandson, Aaron, and his wife and two boys. They live here, but but David's never met them. And I have one more cousin. I can't even think of Stephanie but they have two adult children. I can't remember my cousin's name. But they live in Potomac, Maryland. So he hasn't had the opportunity to meet them either. We just don't see each other that much. So, but getting along with in-laws is very important. And sometimes people do not get along with their in-laws. Sometimes the mother, I think it's a harder time for women. The mothers don't like the wife that their son has chosen, or sometimes the father doesn't like the son, the man that the child has married their daughter. And that can be hard because the in-laws can really interfere and make the marriage very, very stressful. And I can't imagine what it's like to love a child, nurture a child, raise a child, and then your child marries someone that you totally cannot stand. You put all this love and money and effort, and you want your child to be happy, and then they marry someone that you don't think is a good person for them. So I have never had a child. I've never raised a child, so I can't really see it from that perspective. But I can definitely see from a sibling's perspective, if your sibling marries someone that you have nothing in common with, and you kind of lose that person in your life, or your relationship with your sibling or your parents shift and change because all of a sudden there's this new person in your child's life or in your sibling's life that wasn't there before. And that person takes up an enormous amount of space, room, money, resources, time, and that relationship changes. I know that really happened with me and my brother. When he got married to Anya, I was ecstatic, but Kenyon, let's be honest, he's really busy. So I don't get to see him or talk to him, but he was always busy and engaged. But once he got married to Anya, I had less time with him. And now that he has the boys, that time is even more restrictive. Not that he doesn't love me, not that he doesn't care. It's just that he's a husband and a father now. And so one of the things that kept me going during my extended single life was that my brother was also single. Now, he dated a lot. But, I met a lot of ladies he went out with, and they were all, well, not all of them I liked, but a lot of them I did like. And so but when he settled down and he married Anya, things really changed, and I was really happy for him because that's what he wanted. And he loves being married, as you could hear from the the session we did yesterday, and he just adores being a father. I mean, he's just like our dad. He's like in it 100 and 200%. And I'm so happy for him. And I loved hearing what he had to say. So my take on all of this is that you have to accept people where they are, and you have to understand that sometimes families have misunderstandings. And I really love what my brother said yesterday about conflict resolution. And I think the couple has to guard itself or guard their marriage against anyone who is going to tear your mate down. If you've made a decision to love someone and commit yourself to that person, and you did it for love and it was authentic, mama, daddy, brother, sister, cousin, grandma, no one can come between you and your partner unless you allow them to. And no way should an in-law or a friend insult your wife or your husband or treat your significant other or your spouse in a way that's disrespectful. And I know that's hard, especially for, I think, men, because but it could be hard for anybody because you love your parent, but you have to set boundaries. And if you're an adult and you're paying all your own bills and you're living on your own life, always make time for your parent, especially, and take some special time and make some time for your siblings that you're close to, because you don't want to lose those relationships, but it's hard. You have to balance that and try to do things together. And it's okay to have a brother, sister. Even if I'm married, I really treasure just me and Kenyon, because there's some things that only Kenyon and I share, being a brother and a sister, that nobody else knows, that it was what it was really like to grow up in the house with Betty and Julius. I mean, woo! But so, and I always encourage David, to spend some one-on-one time, with his sister Lisa, or whoever he needs to, because that's okay. I'm not insecure about our relationship. I'm not jealous of anyone. I know these are his siblings, that they love him, that he wants to spend time with them. And so those things are important. And that's something that a couple really has to talk through. And if there's any abuse on any side, then the family member needs to be alerted to the fact that, hey, you're hurting my spouse. If you can't be respectful to my spouse or my home, I still love you, but I'm going to separate myself and my spouse from you, because, this is the choice I've made. Now, there is abuse of any type. That is a totally different scenario. I'm not even equipped to talk about that in this session, but it's important that family, in-laws have, space and time, but they don't dominate the marriage. They don't dictate the marriage. And I really feel for teens who get married, or people who are married very young and may not have the financial stability to be independent. That's why it's important to wait until you're mature enough and can, stand on your own 2 feet as a couple, so no one else is dictating that relationship. It takes a lot of maturity and a lot of selflessness to be married. So even though I am older and I got married a little later in life, that's something I'm still adjusting to, because, as my brother so eloquently said yesterday, when we're a little older, we become a little more rigid. But that doesn't mean we can't be there for our spouse. So, hey, you hear my clock? It's time to go. I hope you've enjoyed this edition of Happily Ever After. And believe me, you can survive your in-laws. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much. See you next time. Bye.